Welcome back to the channel, and let's belatedly talk about that URC Semi Final match that happened, an epic at Loftus Versfeld between the Bulls and Leinster. And congratulations to the Bulls on taking your place in the final, which will be at Loftus Versfeld next Saturday evening. I'm now going to have to see if I can change my flight from a week on Monday to this Friday so I could maybe be there, because it's only like 48 hours. If I can just get there a little bit early, I'll be able to watch the final there. If I can, I will. But in any case, I'll be covering South Africa against Ireland on the channel, and obviously all the rest of the club rugby coverage. So if you appreciate that, give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and leave your comments down below as well. Whether you are a Leinster fan who's just been put through the ringer again and trying to come to terms with another trophyless season, I sympathise with your pain. Or you're an ecstatic Bulls fan, so proud of your team's performance, and you've got every right to as well. Comments down below. Firstly, to explain why I'm only doing the video now. You know I love to do videos as soon after a full-time whistle as I can. But yesterday, when the game was going on, I was at 2-2 SAS Regiment, the once home of the great Paddy Mayne. And Paddy Mayne, a founder member of the SAS, but also was an Ireland rugby international, British and Irish Lion. He was also a champion boxer and a medical student, basically the most alpha male man that's ever lived. And every year they have the Paddy Mayne Cup, a rugby match that happens there. And then they have a big dinner where a load of military personnel and rugby names go down. I wasn't a rugby name, I was just, but I was honoured to be in the room with a load of rugby names, England World Cup winners and the like. And yeah, as you can imagine, when you're somewhere like the SAS, it would be frowned upon if you had your phone out. So I didn't have my phone with me, so I couldn't do a video. But here I am anyway, and let's talk about a great game. And firstly, let's talk about a brilliant competition. The URC is getting better and better every year. We've had the Stormers, we've had Munster, and now we're going to have either the Bulls or Glasgow put their name on the trophy. 3 years, 3 different winners speaks to how good this competition is. And I've talked about how good the URC is. I want to talk about how good the Bulls were. But I just want to address Leinster first. Let's get out and get that out of the way so we can talk about all the positive stuff. Leinster fans, how are you feeling and what do you put the defeat down to? How are you explaining what's happened in the last few years? I think the important thing to point out is that you've been in 3 semi-finals and 3 Champions Cup finals in a row. So you're not far off being a great team. And in fact, in the case of this year's Champions Cup final, you're one slightly better drop goal away from being champions and everything feeling great. But here you are again, feeling that feeling of pain, that sinking feeling once again. Do you just put that, I don't know, is it the psychological damage of the previous semi-finals and finals and even World Cup quarter-final that meant that you can't get across the line? And is it like psychological at this point? Or is it tactical or personnel-wise? I think probably the truth of the matter is it's a little bit of all of those, maybe only even a tiny bit of all of those, but put all together. And there's a trend. There's a trend in this team of not winning at the crucial moment, and that must really hurt because fundamentally the squad is a brilliant one. That said, if I were trying to explain what was going on here, and tell me your thoughts in the comments, there's a Johnny Sexton and Stuart Lancaster hangover, no question. I mean, particularly Johnny Sexton. The attack has just not clicked, has it? Ross Byrne, an excellent player, and he's going to get so much pressure again, and I feel sorry for him because he's doing his best. He just isn't Johnny Sexton. Very few people are. Generational talent. They're going to struggle to replace him, but they need to. And I just don't think Ross Byrne's that guy. And Ross Byrne does a lot of things really well. I think the one thing that I always thought when I would watch Johnny Sexton, one of the things that marked him out as a great is how brave he was. The way he takes the ball right to the line before he gives it, opening space for other people. And usually Johnny Sexton straight after would just get walloped by someone. And he kept getting up and doing it again. He's so brave, and that's a big part of the reason why Leinster and Ireland's attack was so much better with him, and is good with Jack Crowley. But Leinster, not with Ross Byrne. That said, it's not the only issue, and it shouldn't be put all on Ross Byrne. This one, I'll come to the coaches in a minute, but in terms of other things on the field, the backup props not good enough. They've got good young players that they've not given minutes to, and at the end of the season, that costs you. Same goes for scrum half. Foley, I think, is a really good young scrum half. They've hardly given him any game time. And so in this big match, you're left with Luke McGrath, who, again, I feel bad for criticising him because he's doing his very best. But the drop-off from Jamison Gibson Park to Luke McGrath it's night and day. And the whole game just slowed right up. And I thought when Gibson Park went off, that was, in my mind, that was kind of game done. Also, leadership. Johnny Sexton, another thing he brought. The communication with the referee is not good enough. Caelan Doris, when he was captain, It seemed like it affected his personal performance. He was actually really good himself yesterday. James Ryan now captain again. I just don't think he communicates with the referee well enough. So they've got something they need to solve there. It's a tough one, isn't it? But like I say, the margins are so small. I just wonder about that kind of psychological damage now. And I don't know. It feels like when the Ireland team go into a room and Andy Farrell stood up front, they just buy into it and believe. I don't know. Do you think they feel the same thing about Leo Cullen? Again, is that being harsh? I don't know. I'm asking the question, not making a statement. But more pain, more pain. Do you know one thing from a coaching perspective? One thing I will say, I'm not going to say it's the reason they lost it, but I think it's one area where Leinster blew it this year. They didn't learn from previous seasons, and they managed their workload badly again. In previous seasons, they've had these big chunks of time where players aren't playing, they're resting up their big guns, then expecting them to be hitting the ground, being top form in the big matches. And it hasn't worked in the last couple of years. And again, despite Leo Cullen saying he wasn't going to do that, he has ended up doing that, and it doesn't work. And the big thing is, had Leinster taken a full-strength Leinster side out to South Africa for that 2 games a couple of months back, rather than sending a second string who just got panned, they would have been higher up the table and they would have had a home semi-final. I know it's all shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I think looking back, that might be a moment where they really shot themselves in both feet. So that's my thoughts on Leinster. Tell me yours in the comments down below. But I don't want to just make it all about Leinster, because there's so much good stuff to talk about when it comes to the Bulls, and they deserve a huge amount of credit. They were absolutely... Do you know the word I'd use to describe the Bulls? They were desperate. In a way that Leinster weren't. They were desperate. The way that they defended, I did not see that coming. I think I'd be surprised if many Bulls fans saw that defensive display come in, because they've been a bit hot and cold, haven't they? And particularly defensively, you're like the attack's been incredible. The defense has been, well, like Benetton just carved them up at times last week, only a week ago, and to go from that against Benetton to that performance against Leinster, incredible defensive display. And I did not expect. I'm not surprised by a Bulls win. I did predict Leinster narrowly, but I'm not. I knew it was going to be tight, and I wasn't surprised by a Bulls win. I was surprised by the manner of the win, for it to be based on a massively huge defence, on a really strong set piece, on scrum, and then a kicking game which just squeezed pressure. I didn't see that coming at all. What I think is really positive from a Bulls fan, if you're a Bulls fan perspective, it's that type of rugby that wins championships. And it got them through this semi-final. And talk about individuals, Willie le Roux, my goodness me. Well, I described him as a rock star of a rugby player the other day. And man alive, did he live up to that billing. How good is Willie le Roux? His rugby brain, his rugby IQ is off the charts. The decision-making of this man is immense. And him playing in that kind of double pivot playmaker with Johan Huijsen, who was also incredible, it really worked. And again, yes, Leinster are missing Johnny Sexton, no question. They're massively missed Hugo Keenan as well. You cannot replace that guy. I called him irreplaceable in the video the other day. He's irreplaceable. He's so good. And consequently, because Willie le Roux was there, and I hope his injury's okay, because he wasn't there for the whole game. I hope he's all right. Willie le Roux was there, and Hugo Keenan wasn't. That may have been the difference between the two teams, because Bulls were just finding grass with their tactical kicks, which, again, you have to say, fair play Jake White. I didn't see that in the manner of the performance coming, and the type of game that the Bulls played. It was proper knockout cut rugby, huge. Yeah, I just desperate's a word I'd use to describe Bulls. I'd also say they were like wild and feral. It seemed like they were desperate to win the match, but they were also desperate to earn a Bock jersey. Now, this guy will be in a Bock jersey if he's fit and available, because he's a rugby rock star. But there were a load of other players who would have been hoping that they can make a statement to Rassie Erasmus that they deserve a Bock jersey as well. And that desperation really came through. I've already mentioned Johan Huijsen. I thought he was brilliant. I thought David Creel was excellent. Again, he's done all he can. And that's the back line. And Peterson, who came in, no Arensa, no Moody, and he was great as well. But the pack, my goodness me, let's talk about the pack. Both the lows, Wilco Low, Quadzilla, the size of his legs. He's a freak, and he just mullered British and Irish Lion, massively experienced Ireland international, Andrew Porter. He just manhandled him. He didn't get the credit from the referee for manhandling in the way he did, but he did manhandle him. And Steenkamp got the better of Furlong. And Elric Lowe's just got an engine that goes on for days. Ruan Nokia, he's such a good leader. And then Cameron Hanekom. I mean, the whole back row, actually. Lowe, Van Staden, and Hanekom were immense. But Cameron Hanekom, when I watched that game, I thought, that's a 50-cap Bok right there. He looks like the heir to Dwayne Vermeulen when he plays like that, doesn't he? I mean, they've got great options at number 8 with Jasper Wiese, with Quagga Smith, among others. But this boy, what a talent. Absolutely epic performance from Cameron Hanekom, along with Philly LaRue, the 2 best players on the pitch for me. For the record, I probably would have given player of the match to Philly LaRue, but I do not begrudge Cameron Hanekom getting it whatsoever because he was amazing. But the maul was on top, the scrum was on top, the leadership was better, the communication with the referee was better, the tactical kicking was better. It was all foundational stuff. And then it's on top of that, you just sprinkle the stardust, but you cannot win without that stuff. And Leinster, some of those basics went missing. So the Bulls absolutely deserve the win. And the one thing I will say is, to credit the Leinster fans, there's been no bleating. I've seen a couple of journalists putting up videos of this should have been a penalty or card, whatever. But for the most part, no one from the Leinster side of things have been moaning about the result. They have been really, really humble, saying the best team won. Good luck to the Bulls. Once again, Leinster fans have been showing their class, and the best team absolutely did win. And as I say, the manner of the victory, I didn't see coming. I've got to credit Jake White for that tactical masterclass. He got one over on Jacques Nienaber. Did you expect to see the Bulls win with a set piece and kicking game and big defence? Brilliant. Now, I've talked about loads of positives there from the Bulls' point of view, and I've left this deliberately till the very end because I do not want to make this the story of the game, because the story of the game should be a brilliant 80-minute match between 2 heavyweight prize fighters who were going toe-to-toe, trying to win, and the team that was a bit more desperate, a bit hungrier, and just played the conditions and the day better, won, as they deserved to. But let's just talk about the officiating for a second, because that was substandard. Adamson, the referee, Ben Whitehouse, the TMO, got issues. I've left it till the end because I don't want it to be the main talking point. I'm English, obviously. I watch a lot of Gallagher Premiership rugby. I think the one thing the URC is missing is English referees, because I think English referees are the best in the world. This refereeing performance was abject. I'm only glad it didn't affect the result because the best team won. And both teams can argue they got bad decisions, and they did. Leinster got some awful decisions that went against them, and the Bulls can definitely say the same. I would say on the balance of it, Leinster definitely got the rub of the green on the whole. Now, any question of bias, I'm not having that. There was no bias towards Leinster. It was just bad. It just so happened that Leinster got more of the bad calls in their favour than the Bulls did, but it was just really poor. And I was amazed that the penalty count was 4 penalties against Leinster and 8 against the Bulls. So few pens, bearing in mind how much foul play was going on. Every ruck was just a mess. And yes, every ruck you could find 5 penalties and pick one. It's always a bit of a magic 8 ball sometimes. The scrum the same. But the Bulls were mullering Leinster's scrum and not getting credit. It looked to me like Leinster were taking it down and the referee was just going, play on. The rucks were wild. They were all just people coming in from the side, croc roll type, like illegal looking rolls to me, dangerous play, and the ref was just like letting it go. And it looked 10 years ago that would have 10 years ago that would have looked normal. It looked odd, didn't it? It looked odd. It didn't look like the way that it's officiated, and all you ever want is consistency. And it looked to me, I can't speak, only the referee and TMO know what was going on, but it looked to me like they were scared to make big decisions because it was a semi-final, and I think they abandoned their post a little bit. I mean, Joe McCarthy, when he was just lying on the ball, trapping the ball in, and then he grabbed the scrum half. It's like, how many offences before you want to give a penalty? Play on. And I can only imagine that would have bubbled up in the frustration. Some of the high shots that came in later might have been misjudged because people were seeing red a little bit, because there's so much looseness being allowed by the ref, and players just want to know where they stand. And like the late shot by Baird that that took out Villy LaRue deserve some sort of sanction. And then Leinster fans could argue that, well, Ronan Kelleher was hit high, and the ref and TMO just went nothing to see here. So I just thought it was really poor. And the URC is a brilliant competition for all the good things I've said about the competition, the teams and how well they've been playing and how good a final we've got to look forward to. URC must do better when it comes to officiating. And I think Amish Kelly, the Georgian ref, he's great, and there are good refs. They just there's work to do there. But I wanted to leave that to the end because I did not want that to be the focus of this video, because it should absolutely be on a brilliant Bulls performance, and if anything, on the lessons that Leinster need to learn. And on both of those points, tell me what you think down below. I'll see you on the next one.